Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Here we are at Aspires Mental Health, and this is our general session for today's online event. Great to see so many of you here in this room, and I am so excited to be hosting today's general session titled The Role of Exercise and Physical Activity on Mental Health, What the Research Shows. This session, we are proud to say that it is sponsored by the John W. Brick Foundation. You'll hear more about that during today's presentation. And we are here with Lynne Brick and Dr. Cassandra Vieten, who are our presenters for today's session. My name is Mo Hagan, representing canfitpro and the host of today's session. I also have Mary working with us as well. And together, we'd like to just familiarize yourself with Zoom if you haven't been on our event yet today. A couple of housekeeping reminders. First of all, your mics have automatically been muted, but we do encourage you, if you are feeling comfortable, to certainly have your cameras on. That would be ideal. It helps our presenters really connect with you and vice versa, allows the presenters to pace their presentation according to your expressions, but also please participate in the chat box. You can click on the chat to open it up to your right of your screen or move it where you'd like. Also, closed captioning has been enabled. If you'd like to deactivate closed captioning, it is on the bar below. In your toolbars, you may have to click on the three dots titled More to do that if you'd like to hide those subtitles. And so basically that's your housekeeping, and I hope you're ready to go. If you'd like, please jump into the chat. Let's exercise at least our fingers and practice how we can engage with the session today. Let us know where you're coming in from. Our presenters today are coming in from both coasts of the United States. And so let's see where you're coming in from. Montreal, wonderful. Bonjour, bonjour. A lot of Montreal out west, out east, north, Toronto, Mississauga, Saskatchewan, Sudbury. Wow. France on vacation. Now that is dedication to your education. Currently in Mexico from Toronto, we have Whitby, Lloydminster. Oh my goodness, we have Perth, West Australia. Thank you. We have a place in Gananoque, Ontario. That I hope I said correctly. Thanks so much, everyone. It is so fantastic to be with all of you. What a great sense of connection coming in from all parts of North America and the globe. And that's what we are so excited about, bringing you this event live, but virtually. And of course, as a delegate to this event, you have access to these sessions following the event itself on recording. So much you can gain today and afterwards. So I am honored to introduce to you our speakers for today's session. And I'm going to begin with Lynne Brick. And Lynne Brick, for those who may not know the infamous Lynne Brick, has a Bachelor of Science in Nursing and a Master in Arts, and is an internationally acclaimed fitness expert, speaker, author, and business leader. The recipient of numerous awards and in the industry. And in 2015, she and her husband, Victor, launched the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation, whose mission is to change the way the world treats mental health. A fun fact about Lynne Brick: Lynne was the very first presenter hired for a canfitpro event dated back to 1993, and we were both in our teenage years. And our next speaker is Dr. Cassandra Vieten. Cassandra, or Cassie, as she likes to be called, holds a PhD in clinical psychology and is the clinical professor and director of the Center for Mindfulness at UC San Diego's Department of Family Medicine. Cassie also serves as director of research at the Arthur C. Clarke Center for Human Imagination and Clinical Psychology, director at the Psychedelics and Health Research Initiative at UCSD. Cassie is a senior advisor and former executive director at the John W. Brick Foundation, Mental Health Foundation, is also senior fellow at the Institute of Noetic Science, where she has certainly accomplished a lot, also in her role as president for many years. And lastly, but not least, Cassie is a very well-known, international recognized workshop leader and keynote speaker. And we are very honored to have both Lynne and Cassie here today. And a reminder, this session is sponsored by the John W. Brick Foundation, Mental Health Foundation. You'll learn a lot about that. And we are so proud to have this session and both of you here today. So without further ado, let's give both speakers a warm Canadian welcome.
Thank you, Mo. It's such a pleasure to be here, and it's an absolute honor to have had the opportunity to work with the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation and my partner in health, instead of being my partner in crime, Lynne Brick, who's been just an incredible inspiration to me. And the Bricks have made a real dent in how we view mental health and have contributed over $3 million of their own funds to programs all over the world, helping young people, elders, veterans, using this new approach to mental health and well-being that we'll be sharing with you today. So it's a pleasure to be here with you, Lynne, and thank you, Mo and CanFit, for having us.
Yes, thank you, Mo. And I just want to also add, it's an honor to be here with Cassie as well. And as she says, while we all may realize that we're in the middle of a mental health crisis, what people may not realize is that we're in the beginning of a mental health renaissance. So again, we're excited to share this information and facts with each of you.
Great, so let's get started. Can I have a thumbs up as soon as you can see the slides? Excellent, great. So Lynne and I are representing the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation, and the inspiration for the foundation came from Victor Brick, Lynne's other half. His brother, John, suffered from schizophrenia and the consequences for his entire life, and was in and out of mental institutions and different forms of therapy and medication, but was never really ever offered a holistic, integrative approach to his mental health and well-being, and unfortunately ended up dying of complications from his mental illness. And so that inspired Victor and Lynne to start the foundation and to do some very deep research into what really promotes mental health. Now, of course, Lynne and Victor are fitness pioneers, and they already knew the effect that exercise and movement had on mental health, anecdotally, and from many, many people that they had worked with. But when they began to both delve into the research and then start to fund and advance some of the research, we were even surprised to find out that the evidence was overwhelming that exercise is linked with mental health and well-being. And so now we're doing a lot of work bringing this to both the fitness industry and the mental health world, to make sure that the mental health world knows at this point, it's almost, I wouldn't say malpractice, but it's pretty close to not include exercise and fitness in a mental health treatment program. But also to the fitness industry, so many people are coming because they want to not only address their physical health, but also their mental health. So that's kind of where we're coming from.
And Cassie, in your training, how much did you learn about movement and exercise and nutrition in your studies?
Yes, that's a big zero. Yeah, so we, as mental health professionals, we receive a lot of training in brain chemistry, in psychotherapy, in medications, and various approaches to mental health and well-being, but we receive almost no training on exercise or fitness or movement or nutrition and how that affects mental health. Great. So you chatted in to say where you're from, and this time we'd love for you to chat in what is your number one stress reduction or mental and emotional well-being coping mechanism? So what is the number one thing that you do to improve your mental health and well-being on a day-to-day basis? So I'm seeing exercise, running, being in nature, group fitness, walking, meditation, outdoor walks, so good.
That's
Bouncing on a trampoline, oh my gosh, I have to do that. Breath work, impromptu dance parties, yes.
Oh, yay.
Spend time with your
And with your
daughter,
daughter.
fitness classes, yoga, socializing, getting outside. This is great. Thank you, everyone. A few people in my classes, let's see, I'd love to see that one, suffer from depression, and even cancer survivors would love more tips to help with my participants. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Thank you all for putting that in the chat. And you've already demonstrated that the way most people find is successful to help cope with mental health issues are all of these different exercises, all of these different practices. And as Lynne was saying, and by the way, we're going to go through a lot of slides. We're going to go through them relatively quickly. So take a moment now, if you can, scan this QR code to receive the slides. We'll put this up at the end again as well. And we'll also send the slides to CanFit in case you'd like to get a PDF, or you can write to us directly to request the slides. So don't worry about trying to remember every single thing we say or write down everything we say. We're going to send them to you later. But as Lynne was saying, you know, the unfortunate news is that we are in a mental health crisis. The good news is that we are actually moving into what we call a mental health renaissance. And the reason we say that is because there are now thousands of studies that are showing that many of these techniques that you just put into the chat are not only subjectively helpful to our mental health and well-being, but they are evidence-based. They are showing hard data, not only on your self-report, but on your physiology, your hard outcomes like sleep and symptoms and things like that, that these actually really work.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Right.
So Lynne, tell us more
So,
about how are we changing the way the world treats mental health?
well, you know, that's the thing that we've really leaned into at the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation. As Cassie described, Victor's oldest brother, John, passed away from complications of schizophrenia. You don't die necessarily from schizophrenia, but all the impending complications of the years and years of being treated in the traditional big three, which is talk therapy or psychotherapy, institutionalization, and medication. And, you know, so often it was the philosophy that it's best to diagnose or identify early and then medicate early. But after John's passing, we just felt like there had to be a better way. So we started exploring with our fitness background and wellness background. We just started exploring what is really out there. And there was really nothing. So we were inspired to create the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation. We teamed up with Cassie and other professionals throughout our journey, and as well as folks that are involved with the Global Wellness Summit. And the key thing is that we want to be with like-minded folks, the people that believe that there's got to be a better way. So our purpose is to integrate. And notice I say the word integrate, not alternative, but integrate self-care practices or approaches such as exercise, nutrition, and mind-body practices into the treatment of mental health and the promotion of mental well-being. And if you think about the words mental health and mental well-being, sometimes they're interchangeable. But when we're talking about well-being, whether it's physical or mental, we're really talking about happiness. Happiness. Let's get to a point where we can focus on flourishing to become more happy. Who doesn't want that in their life? And of course, we're not trying to disregard folks that need help, that need the medical community to help them along the way. Sure, there are people that do need some help. We're not trying to be alternative. Again, we want to integrate. So there are three buckets that we focus on at JWB: are research, where Cassie mentioned we've actually donated our own money, as well as funds that we've raised through the JWB toward a gold standard study at UCSF, University of California, San Francisco. We create programs and services, and you'll learn more about some of the programs, such as the Mental Wellbeing Association. And also we are a collaborative hub. So we focus on other organizations, foundations, etc., that again, believe what we believe. So next.
Great. We're just
Oh,
the
there you
screen,
go.
folks. It looks like there was a enthusiastic annotator, but it's not disappearing. I'm going to try to escape and reshare my slides and see if that will work. So let me do that.
Thank you, Cassie. I was wondering what that
Yeah.
was. It
Okay,
magically
looks like
appeared.
that is going to work. Yeah. Okay, wonderful.
There you go. Thank you.
Great. So our
Beautiful.
presentation today is going to focus on new perspectives on mental health. We're going to delve deeply into the science of exercise and mental health. We will talk about how mental health affects the fitness professions right now, and then we'll have a Q&A session. And so we'll start off by talking about some new perspectives on mental health and why Lynn and I like to say that there is a mental health renaissance. We all know that there's a crisis, and this data is true for the United States and Canada combined, as well as around the world. 46% of people meet criteria for a diagnosable mental health condition sometime in their life, and half of those people develop those conditions by the age of 14, if you can believe that. Unfortunately, there is one death about every 11 minutes due to suicide. It is the second leading cause of death for people ages 10 to 14 and between 20 and 34. And nearly 1 in 5 people will have a diagnosable mental health condition in any given year. We mentioned the suicide statistics. They're even worse for people who are veterans and also people who are in law enforcement. Around 17 veterans die from suicide every single day. And a huge number of people who struggle with mental health issues don't have access to the treatment that they need. As we mentioned before, those treatments, while they're improving all the time, are overwhelmingly focused on institutionalization, psychotherapy, or medication, all of which are very important to treating mental health, but very few of those treatments include a truly holistic approach, a whole person approach. Over 1 in 10 youth in the United States anyway are experiencing depression that is severely impairing their ability to function at school, at work, at home, with their families. So this is definitely an epidemic. But we are learning a lot of new things about mental health, even just since COVID. And so I want to bust some myths here. One myth, as you can tell from these data, is that only some people face mental health issues. It really is something that affects all of us. And what I mean by that is you can see the prevalence of actual mental health diagnoses is much higher than anybody may think it is. But when you think about what we call subclinical symptoms of mental health and well-being, loneliness, isolation, worry, holding resentments or grudges or regrets, these kinds of things, they do plague many, many more people than what we were just telling you about. And then even if you are someone who doesn't yourself face mental health challenges, if I asked you to all raise your hand, I bet we'd see a ton of raised hands. Do you have a close family member or a friend who has faced mental health issues? Even if you're one of the vast, the tiny minority of people who don't have that, you are facing mental health issues when you see somebody who's homeless on the side of the road, or when you are the victim of a robbery or a crime. These are all influenced by mental health issues. And so in reality, we all face mental health issues in some form or another. It's not really abnormal to face mental health challenges. It's quite common. And there's also kind of an old idea that's leaving now, which is that mental well-being is just the norm. Like you should experience mental and emotional well-being and not have to do anything. It doesn't take any work at all. Now, for this group, if I told you you should be able to have muscles and a firm, lean, toned body without any work at all, you would say that's no, you have to work on it to have that kind of, to maintain your physical fitness. The same is true for mental well-being. You have to work at it. It's not the norm. It takes daily maintenance. It takes mental health practices and mental well-being practices to do this. We've already mentioned that the myth is that there are only a few ways to improve mental health: talk therapy, hospitalization, that you should wait until you're really, really desperate to get help. Also not true. As soon as you start to see symptoms arise is a good time to start getting help for it. And the final myth is mental health and well-being should be dealt with alone and in private. And some of you have probably gone through the era of that Lynn and I have, of people whispering, that I think they're having mental health problems. Nowadays, of course, you see the kids on TikTok, they're like, oh my God, my ADHD, my OCD, everything is bumming me out today. So, there are some downsides of social media for our children for sure, but there are also some upsides in that a lot of kids are coming and being able to say, I'm struggling and here's the kind of things that help me. Lynn, do you have anything to add to the mental health myths?
Yeah, was there another page as well, or was,
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I thought. But let's go through these and
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
some,
So more myths are that mental health and physical health are two separate things. So when you see that when you get medical care, if you're having a physical health problem, you likely go to one building, and if you're having a mental health problem, you likely go to another building. Sometimes it's not even on the same place. It's like all the way across town is the mental health center. And even in your insurance coverage will be one thing for physical health and a different thing for mental health. Although you smart Canadians have uh, healthcare, thank goodness, and someday we'll grow up and be more like you. But mental health and physical health are also separated in the scientific literature. When this is really a myth, and we're starting to break down that myth, everything in your body affects your mental health, and your mental health affects everything in your body: endocrine
mhm.
system, immune system, inflammation, brain structure and function, chemistry, microbiome. Now we're starting to truly understand that it's completely intermingled and it really shouldn't be treated separately.
And I'll just add that so often I hear professionals mention that you should not let issues get in your tissues. So, yeah, it's a two-way street here.
Yeah, yeah. There's also been a historical misunderstanding that mental well-being is much less important than physical well-being when it comes to living longer, healthier lives. The truth is that physical well-being is very important: exercise, nutrition, etc. But mental well-being is equally, if not more, sometimes important to living a longer, healthier life. Every disease that we face right now, not every, for 90% of the diseases that we face right now that bring on mortality or death are behaviorally focused. Heart disease, um, all of these things.
Loneliness,
Yeah, I mean, all of the
loneliness.
things that we face, loneliness, isolation, we know that social connection, for example, when you have true social connections in your life as you age, you have the same degree of benefit as you would have if you were to quit smoking as a smoker. So that is some serious physical benefits of mental well-being. So we've got to elevate mental well-being and physical well-being to the same importance level. A couple more that I want to mention is that we're going to talk a lot about whole person approaches to mental health. And sometimes you're going to have patients or clients or people you're training, family members and friends and children, and you say, look, if you were just to walk 30 minutes a day, you would get some equivalent benefits to an antidepressant, but then they don't do it. And you think, well, you just must not want to get better. It's not really true. And we'll talk more later about how, unfortunately, mental health symptoms get in the way of the very activities that would help to reduce those same symptoms. It's hard for people to start exercising. It's hard for people to eat well. especially when they're having some mental health issues. So just make sure that when we put this out there, we're not coming from a judgmental approach towards people. We know that it's going to take a lot of hand holding, a lot of training, a lot of help. And this is some place that you guys can really come in, is to be those coaches, to be those friends, and to be those encouragers, but not to treat it like it's easy. At the same time, on the other hand, when somebody's facing mental health issues, the worst thing we can do is say, well, just let them stay in their room all day in the dark because they're having depression. Nope, your job is to get them up, get them out, even if it means you need to do it right next to them and do the same thing they're doing, or have them do it for 5 or 10 minutes, if nothing else. So you want to balance being too judgy on somebody because they're not doing enough for their mental health, but also not letting them go too far into, uh, you know, allowing themselves to not have to do anything, right? So that's a good balance. So just one more part of the Renaissance that we're talking about, we're learning that mental health and well-being isn't all about eliminating symptoms. It's about learning to navigate symptoms. So some people are just kind of hardwired towards depression, anxiety, addictive cravings. And for those people, we're learning that it's not always possible to get rid of those, but we can help them learn to live with them. We're moving from a disease focus to more of a wellness focus. We're moving from what we just said, those people over there have a problem, I don't have a problem, to all of us are in this together. We can all help elevate our collective mental health and well-being by working together. We're moving from thinking that it's either good or bad to have mental health or well-being, to thinking everybody gets to be invited and welcomed no matter what they're going through. You are welcome here. It's one major message you can send to your clients as a trainer, is whatever's going on with you, you are welcome here. Come as you are. We're moving from thinking that we need to intervene late in people's mental health and well-being problems to starting very, very early. We're learning that there are dozens of approaches to mental health and well-being, not just a few. Again, we're learning that it's a whole body approach to mental health and well-being, not just above the neck, not just in the brain and the mind. And we're moving towards more compassion, more self-compassion, more understanding that these are not shameful issues. They're pretty common. Again, we're moving towards empowering people instead of lowering our expectations when they are facing mental health challenges. We're actually going to expect more out of them. We just know that they're going to need more help. And we know that we need to take a team and community-based approach to mental health and well-being. So we'd love for you to use the chat now to mention, what are some ways that you see mental health and well-being changing the way the world treats mental health? What are some ways that you all see things changing for the positive in the mental health domain? Oh, people more openly speaking about it. Yes, more open communication. I mean, athletes and, late night talk show hosts, movie stars, people are really coming out of the closet and being willing to say, I'm having a hard time. Yeah, more open to talking about it, even famous people. It's okay to not be okay. Yeah, and a bigger sense of community. Oh yeah, general practitioners, family medicine taking a more holistic approach. That's
Rather
interesting.
than pushing things.
Yeah, it's like it's starting to become almost trendy. That's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah, more accessibility, people being able to, oh, interesting. And some people self-diagnosing in order to fit in. So there may be even some backlashes to it being so open and so, out there.
Mhm.
But, usually that happens when a pendulum swings from being completely silent and secret. We're going to have that pendulum swing, and hopefully it'll come back to being in the middle again. Marilyn,
Yeah.
it can be used as an excuse. That's true. Yeah, there are some trends out there right now where people are like, well, I'm depressed, so I'm not responsible for any of my behavior, or, yeah. Ooh, I love that. More mental health days. All right, great. Okay, Lynn, maybe you can share this part.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. Well, traditionally, as Cassie has shared, in the old days, people thought of mental health as being on a continuum with high mental health or illness on one end and low or no mental illness on the other. And in the middle, mild to moderate issues like mild depression, mild anxiety. But what's happened is that over time, we've realized actually Dr. Corey created this dual continuum model, which is the new model from which and paradigm from which we believe that all professionals should understand. And this, and you still have the horizontal continuum where there's the mental illness spectrum, which is more pathogenic, more medically based, but you also have this vertical continuum where it's languishing on one side and flourishing at the top end. So, and that's really focuses on salutogenic or self-care practices. And this is basically our lane. Hallelujah. It is something we can all embrace and try to educate even practitioners and physicians about the dual continuum. As a matter of fact, Victor and I sit on the board of the advisory board for Johns Hopkins Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, and they had never heard of the dual continuum. The chief of the department asked, "Can you send that to me?" He had never seen it before. But I wanted to share a little example because Victor not only had one brother that suffered from schizophrenia, he had another brother who is still alive today. His name is Bob. And Bob had suffered from schizophrenia for quite some time. It was severely medicated and went through all kinds of ups and downs. But after both Victor's mom and dad passed away, I should say after Victor's dad passed away, but Victor's mother was like literally on her deathbed. She was like in a coma. And we knew she was hanging on because she was Bob's caretaker for so many years. And Merrill and Victor's brother Merrill, other brother Merrill, and Victor had a conversation with his mom and just explained, "Mom, we'll take care of Bob. Don't worry, you can let go." And Bob said, "Yeah, they'll take care of me, Mom." And within a short period of time, she passed. Well, time went on, and we actually had a housekeeper that would help Bob make sure he didn't burn down the house if he prepared any meals or anything like that. And he was smoking 2 packs a day, drinking, just his lifestyle behavior was just really not super great. So we're like, "Bob, you are the caretaker of this house now. So let's get you to be more active." And we explained to Merrill, "Merrill, you're not just going to get Bob a bike, you're going to get one for yourself too." So the two of them, they had been riding their bikes, and Merrill would take Bob to the gym and train with them. And Victor would call him and say, "How you doing, Bob?" And Bob would say, "Merrill's killing me." But guess what? Over a period of time now, it's been 10 years, Bob has lost 66 pounds. He has greatly reduced his cigarette smoking. He is off of all kinds of medication, like reduced his psychiatric medication in half. So he's living proof about self-care practices that has helped. Plus, he has a job. He is flourishing. He's happy, even though he has a diagnosable mental illness. But that's an example of how it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum, life events can happen. You could be physically happy, mentally happy, and enjoying life. And then all of a sudden you get the phone call, "Daddy, Mom, I have cancer." And then your knees drop to the ground, and then your whole world changes. So it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum, whether it's you have a pathogenic diagnosable illness or life events happen, there's always a room for improvement to move toward flourishing.
Great. So yeah, we hope that you can use this dual continuum in your own thinking and with your clients, that even if they are experiencing some symptoms of anxiety or depression or stress or other things, they can still flourish if they put together some self-care practice routines. And one of the ways that we have framed these self-care routines is what we call the ecosystem of mental well-being. And what you can see here is that we do have crisis support, treatment, and counseling at the top. So there are times that people might need those. I've certainly taken advantage of those. And I always say to people, it's good for you, even if you've never had to use it, to know how you would use it if you did need to. But that's only one part of mental health and well-being. Body movement, exercise, eating well and nutrition, art, music, creativity, sleep and rest, purpose and meaning, having a way to be of service and make a contribution, friendships and support, nature, being outdoors, and taking a little bit of time every day, every week for meditation, contemplation, breathing. These are the evidence-based tools that you can have your clients put together into their own ecosystem of mental well-being. You can even use this worksheet, which we're going to put in the chat right now, and you can scan this code to download this worksheet and fill it out for yourself, put it up on your wall. And these are things that you can do not just in the next few weeks, but really over the next few years to build this ecosystem of mental well-being. And if you hit each of these a few times every week, you're going to have a pretty good mental health and well-being system installed in your life. So if you have clients who are interested in their mental well-being in addition to their physical health, you might do this with them, or at least give them the worksheet to take home and say, hey, I'm as interested in your mental well-being as I am in your physical well-being because I know they're not separate. I want you to fill this out and bring it back next time we do the training.
Exactly. I just wanted to add too that they're really talking about a proactive approach. Sure, people can be anywhere on that horizontal continuum again, but when we include an ecosystem into our lifestyle behavioral habits, we can be much more focused on proactive approaches to mental well-being.
Great. So let's get a little bit more deeply into the science of exercise and mental health. You all know this to be true through your profession, that exercise and movement improve people's mental health. But one of the things the John W. Brick Foundation has done is an in-depth study of the role of exercise and physical activity on mental health. What we did was we scoured the literature for every published peer-reviewed article on the role of exercise with mental health and summarized it into a report that you can download on our website, johnwbrickfoundation.org. And you can also read a shorter executive summary. There's a data visualization on our website where you can look up almost any form of exercise and almost any mental health outcome and find the articles. Oops, let's see. Sorry about that, guys. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, let me get us back here.
While she's doing that, I wanted to say it was when they did the research to pull up all the data that's been published, it was 30 years worth of research and over 1,300 articles were reviewed. So it's a meta-analysis of all the data that's been out there, and the data keeps growing.
Yeah, so let's say you wanted to find all the articles on how group exercise or aerobic exercise affects anxiety. You would put anxiety in the outcome and aerobic exercise in the exercise, and that's going to bring up all the articles. Then at the bottom, you'll be able to click and actually go to each article. But let's tell you what we learned. Let's summarize what we learned. Does the literature support our knowledge, our subjective experience that exercise and physical activity benefit mental health? The existing scientific research overwhelmingly indicates that exercise and physical activity benefit mental health. 89% of all of the published peer-reviewed research between 1990 and 2022 found a positive, statistically significant relationship between exercise, physical activity, and mental health. What we found in general, so this is not for every single person, but overall, 3 to 5, 30 to 45-minute moderate to vigorous exercise sessions per week appeared to deliver the optimal mental health benefits. 3 to 5 times per week is obviously better than fewer for reducing depressive symptoms. So it's much better to do it 3 to 5 times a week than 1 time a week. But there is sort of an inverted U-shaped curve where more than that, 6 to 8 times a week, for example, is not always better. In fact, in people who are more anxious, more often can be a little bit stress inducing because they get kind of obsessive about it and they feel weird if they don't do it. It becomes a little bit more of a compulsive thing. So that's a sweet spot. It doesn't mean if, you know, this is general, right? So you may be a fitness trainer and you're doing an hour a day, fantastic. But for people facing mental health symptoms, the ideal seems to be this 3 to 5 times a week and moderate to vigorous. So that's the interesting part is, yes, it does help to take a walk every day. Yes, it does help to do Tai Chi and Qigong, but to get that heart rate up and to really be pushing the edges is what releases the chemicals that help to counteract depressive symptoms. A vigorous bout of exercise is the equivalent of an entry-level dose of Zoloft. And this is from one of our physician colleagues at Johns Hopkins.
Exactly. So you can't talk about vigorous activity without really embracing the Yerkes-Dodson law of positive stress or eustress. And this is a beautiful illustration here of the typical bell curve, but you see the rise is performance on the left and the run is level of stress on the bottom. And as we start to engage in any kind of either physical or mental or emotional activity, there's boredom at first, and then as you approach your comfort zone, it feels comfortable, yes, but there's that sweet spot right in the middle, which is really optimal, and where we're kind of stepping out of our comfort zone, and that's where growth and learning takes place. And, you know, as they say, nothing changes if nothing changes. If you're not challenging your body, your mind, your spirit in such a way that is a little bit more challenging for those of you who have ever experienced, like the Wim Hof breathing, for example, it's challenging, but that's where the magic happens, as Wim describes it. That's where the tingling happens when they are in a hypoxic state. But too much, as Cassie has mentioned, is not necessarily a good thing when positive stress becomes distress. And that's where you can have fatigue and exhaustion and anxiety and panic, which is not beneficial. So having each of your clients or members, or even a staff member that you work with, discover where their sweet spot is, and then push a little bit more for whether it's physical, psychological, emotional, or some kind of other work challenge that they might be facing. Encourage them, coach them, help them to understand that it's going to do their mind, body, and spirit a lot of good.
Yeah, and make sure that you're scaling your training recommendations not only towards their physical capabilities, but to their mental and emotional capabilities. So someone who's gone through a very difficult time in their life or they're feeling very down, they may be physically capable of doing an hour and a half training, but their emotional and mental health might be that you say, you know what, their sweet spot is 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and that I'm going to work them up over time. Because if we go too far into that distress zone, the likelihood is that they're not going to come back. They're going to be too distressed and it's not going to be helpful.
Exactly.
For younger people, it's pretty dire right now, the exercise profile. Younger adults today sit over 9 hours a day on average. That's the largest increase in sedentary time and the largest decrease in moderate to vigorous physical activity over previous decades, which negatively influences mental health and increases risk for anxiety, depression, lower emotional well-being. Even reductions in sedentary time, even 60 minutes a day, positively influence mental well-being. So if you've got teenagers in your life or younger adults or younger adult clients, for them, it doesn't have to necessarily be moderate to vigorous 60 minutes a day, but just moving at all 60 minutes a day is super helpful. So, you know, working with those younger people on stopping the sitting time is going to reduce their risk for anxiety, depression, lower emotional well-being. keeping in mind again that depression, stress, and fatigue will restrict the desire to participate in exercise, and that prevents people from getting the benefits. So some of the ways we overcome this is to gradually increase it over time, to do one-to-one training sessions for a long time until we move them into group training or independent training, to do some gamification of exercise, especially for younger people. There's even some virtual reality video games that people can use with a headset on to start exercising if you have teenagers who are stuck in gaming land or social media land and hours on the screen. Sometimes they will use a screen for exercise. Um, so just keep in mind that you are going to be trying to overcome some barriers in people who are having some depression or high stress or fatigue, or even people who are going through grief of losing a loved one or have a loved one who's ill or they're a caregiver. These are all things that you might consider asking your clients. Is there anything that is unusually stressing you out at this time in your life? And use that as a trainer to say, okay, I'm going to have to take not only a physical approach with this person, but also attention to some of these mental well-being exercise recommendations. Depression is one of the most amenable to exercise. So 39 trials have found that exercise is associated with reduced symptoms of depression. Another 25 randomized controlled trials showed that exercise has a large and significant effect, again, when the exercise was moderate intensity, aerobic, and supervised by fitness professionals. And Lynn and I really do want to make it clear that fitness professionals have a huge role to play in addressing the societal epidemic of depression, isolation, loneliness, all of these things that people don't necessarily think of fitness professionals as part of the solution to the mental health epidemic, but you absolutely are.
Hooray.
We mentioned teens before. Know that the adolescent brain continues to develop till the age of 25. Physical
Mhm.
activity, exercise, aerobic fitness facilitates psychological resilience, and it strengthens individual brain regions and the larger neural circuits of the brain. So you're having a direct influence on the brain and the development of teens and young adults in ways that will last into the rest of their lives when we put together a training program. So one of the things you may do as a fitness professional is actually start to bring this neuroscience language into your training and let people know, oh, you're not just training your mind, you're not just training your physical muscles right now, you're training the brain. You are changing your brain for the better as you do this.
I want to add,
Exercise. Yeah.
sorry, Cassie, I would just want to add real quick that at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, they're doing a lot of research on the effect of the brain and the dopamine response to too much screen time. And they're really encouraging parents not to ever give their kids a mobile device until they're at least 18 years of age. So there'll be more on that. I know the US Surgeon General is very keen to reinforce that message to parents.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. Yeah. Exercise also in adults and people with depression improves brain plasticity, meaning that the brain is more able to learn, it's more willing to change. It can rebuild brain structure. It activates brain regions that promote adaptive changes in behavior. So by exercising more, you would be more likely to be able to pick up dietary changes and positive changes in behavior. It helps to maintain hippocampal volume, which is where the memory lies and the focus. So when you increase your hippocampal volume, your memory improves, your focus improves. White matter volume integrity is that cortex part. It even improves brain nerve processing efficiency. It's almost like putting lubricant or WD-40 into your brain wiring, and it
40.
delays decline of, yeah, right. Um, it delays the decline of cognitive function. So it's just this incredible thing. And part of how it does this is through brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. And this is kind of a neurotransmitter that is a precursor to dopamine, serotonin, all of these things. And it actually gets released when the skeletal muscles contract. There's a release of BDNF, which then increases all of these fantastic immune system and inflammatory cytokines. It increases blood flow in the brain, neurogenesis, or the creation of new neurons. And so BDNF is sort of like the thing that leads to greater neuroplasticity, and exercise increases BDNF. Also, when we miss sleep, we lose BDNF. When we have a lot of fat and sugar, we lose BDNF. When we have a ton of stress, lose BDNF. So this makes exercise super, super important to helping your brain adapt and learn, and countering the negative effects of some of these other things. So we've talked a lot about vigorous and aerobic exercise. When we talk about balance, flexibility, and flow, yoga and other mindful exercises such as Tai Chi and Qigong show strong evidence also for reducing symptoms of anxiety and depression. And what you can do is, especially for someone who's facing anxiety, you might shake up some of those moderate to vigorous exercise of 30 to 40 minutes with a yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, or start or finish the exercise routine with some of those mindful movements. If you're not trained in those, you can just do mindful stretching. Slow it down, pay attention to your body as you're doing the stretching. And
Exactly. So well, I was just going to add, it's kind of like the opposite of what you might think. If someone is depressed, they want to slow down, but we need to encourage them to do more. And cardio and strength combination seems to be one of the best ways to accomplish that. Whereas someone that's anxious, has anxiety, and maybe fidgety, or whatever their idiosyncrasies may be, how they exhibit it, that's when they need to kind of slow down and not go harder. So when we think of movement, often we think of traditional things we do in our clubs, like on the treadmill or elliptical, traditional cardio or cardio classes, traditional strength training, traditional types of things. But there's lots of things that are not so traditional, as some of you mentioned in the chat before, like getting outside, immersing in nature, Shinrin-yoku, which is forest bathing, or all walking and just taking in the beauty that surrounds us, whether it's in the city or out in the suburbs or on the beach. So there are lots of things that are not traditional, and that includes laughter yoga. So I'd like to go ahead and switch to the next slide. I think that we have. Oh, I wanted to also say, so what's really the best thing type of exercise that's going to improve mental well-being? The one that they will do. The one they will do is really, and do it consistently. And like Cassie said, just walking for 10 minutes might be where they start. And then you can build off of that. But helping to coach them and literally hold their hand one-on-one before they get involved with a group. So we want to create that social connection too. But it's the one that they will do is the best exercise for them or for you. So I'd like to share some non-traditional things. As we've said, there's all kinds of things you can do, but the one thing that can really help secrete a dose of happiness, the 4 happy hormones, as I call it, DOSE, and that's dopamine, which is your addiction or your feel-good neurotransmitter, oxytocin, which is your human connection or your bonding hormone, serotonin, which is your mood regulating or happy hormone, and endorphins, of course, which is your painkiller or euphoric hormone that's secreted, especially with that any kind of exercise, moving toward moderate to vigorous activity. So since life is not a spectator sport, and I have a saying that, and you've probably heard this saying before, when you hear, you forget, when you see, you remember, but when you do, you know. So now it's time to kind of engage in a little bit of self-care right now. Are you ready? You can do this seated or standing, whichever you feel more comfortable doing. All right, I saw Cassie have a thumbs up. That's awesome. Okay, so first of all, I want you to connect the dots between your belly button and your spine and roll your shoulders up and back and place them down your back hip pocket. Beautiful. And just very simply, we're going to laugh. And here's the deal about laughter. Laughter, especially when it's done this way, is unconditional. In other words, it doesn't depend on comedy, jokes, or humor. It is just a natural response to either seeing someone else laugh, which I'm sure you've been on a subway or some kind of public transpo and you've seen somebody laugh and you're like, wondering, what are they laughing about? And then you kind of just start laughing yourself. That's how contagious laughter can be. And it doesn't matter whether it's a real laugh or a fake laugh, fake it until you make it, because your body will secrete that beautiful dose of happiness by engaging in laughter yoga. So are you ready? Are you ready? You still have your core engaged and your shoulders up and back. And let me just say this too. It's called laughter yoga because you're bringing in more oxygen to your brain and your body, and you're using your diaphragm a lot. Very important with pranayama, right? So like, take your arms toward me, give me like you're going to give me a big hug. Oh, thank you. I love you too. And take a nice deep breath. Inhale and hold it. Hold it, hold it, hold it. And just raise your arms overhead and let your head drop back. All right, let's do that again. That's just your warm up. We're getting warmed up here. The arms forward, inhale, hold it, hold it, hold it, and exhale and laugh. And you're probably starting to feel it in your belly now. Arms forward, let's try that again. Inhale, hold it, hold it, hold it, and a bigger laugh. Okay, one more time. Come to me, baby. All right, inhale and exhale. All right, just shake it out, shake it out. Now that's your warm up. We're just going to do one more simple exercise, and there's thousands of things you can do, but it's basically based on childlike pantomiming behavior. If you feel uncomfortable, just look at your kids or your grandkids and mimic what they do. So you have your palm up like this, and in your other hand, you have a big tube of laughter cream, and turn it upside down and give it a big squeeze. All right, and throw that tube away. And it is laughter cream. So, rub your hands together. You laugh and up your arm. Oh, yes. It's, oh, and how about all the other arms? There's one side more ticklish than the other. And then down your arm. Oh, and I heard it makes you more youthful and more beautiful. So, oh my goodness, take a nice deep breath. Inhale, hold it, and exhale. Excellent job. So how do you feel in this moment? Let's think about somatically. Where do you feel this? I'll tell you where I feel it. I feel it in my belly, like I've just done like 50 to 60 crunches. I feel it in my shoulders. My shoulders feel so much more relaxed, so much more relaxed. I feel more energized, like I definitely have more oxygen in my brain, which can help with focus and work production, etc. And oh my goodness, I just feel like my whole body is tingling all over. So I want to thank you for playing along. It felt good everywhere. Thank you so much, Linda, for sharing that. All right. So moving along. I gotta like calm down a little bit after that. So how does all this information apply to mental health and fitness professions? Let's explore. All right, so Euromonitor was an international research company, kind of like Gallup, and they researched different generations, like why do they join health clubs? Why do they want to be active? And the number one reason across every age group or generation was for their mental well-being. So this is a golden opportunity for all of us in our industry. Number one reason. Go ahead, next Thank you. And here's the other thing too, that movement is becoming more mainstream now. Movement for mental fitness is becoming more mainstream. And there's lots of publications that are sharing this information, not only through Well-to-Do Global, which is a global publication, online publication, but also many, many headlines, which I'm sure you've seen in Canada and the US, have really been sharing a lot of information that's being published, and how exercise strengthens your brain, how exercise combined with mindfulness is best for mental health, researchers say. Study highlights exercise as a powerful tool to fight depression. Exercise may be more effective than antidepressants in treating depression. And I'm sure you've seen that study before. And exercise boosts the brain and mental health. In addition to that, there's the next one is 3/4 of gym goers, that's all of our members, report their boost in mental health after they're coming into the gym, especially on a consistent basis. So, wow. The media has laid the foundation for us to really promote this very important message. So after the pandemic, IRSA, now the Health and Fitness Association, actually recruited Clearview, another research organization, to determine what the rallying cry should be for the entire industry to recover from the pandemic. And they said a couple of things. The whole focus is to reconnect with well-being. With well-being. In other words, more happiness. How can we help people to reconnect to their personal happiness? And it needed to be timeless. It needed to be tap into an existing emotion. It needed to be highly adaptable and provide instant gratification. So the traditional way we've looked at the member experience, every one of our members coming into our clubs or our studios, it's the traditional workout, effort, workout. And then maybe in a month, you might lose a pound or two. Doesn't really provide a lot of instant gratification now, does it? But Clearview had made this recommendation that every time that there's effort, there's immediate reward. If we reframe the whole experience, that every single time there's an effort or workout, then you get an immediate reward. You feel better. A workout or produce more effort, there's another reward. Produce more effort, there's another reward. So every single time there's an effort or a physical activity or any kind of mental activity or just walking on the beach, there is an immediate reward, instant gratification. And that is really where we should be focusing on all of our member experiences, whether you're working one-on-one with a client or a personal training client or in a group setting. Like, how do you feel? Instead of saying goodbye, see you next time, like, tell me, how do you feel? Where do you feel this right now? Just like what I asked you, where do you feel this in your body right now? And so after we did the laughter, so it's really an important phenomenon. So canfitpro, as you know, produces their amazing trends every single year. And number 3 trend, and hence the reason why we're here today, the number 3 trend is on mental health, stress management programs. And here we are discussing it right here, right now, because we really have the tools to provide change, behavior change for all of our members, all of our clients, and it's not just for those that we serve, it's also for our family members, our circle of influence, and even for ourselves. IRSA had also done they were curious, what do fitness professionals really know and understand? It was overwhelming response. What was the statistic, Cassie? 89%?
Yeah, it was something like 89% of the fitness professionals that were surveyed said that they would be very interested in being trained further on mental health and well-being.
Exactly. So hence the reason why we created the Mental Wellbeing Association, which is the platform. It houses the mental wellbeing certification for fitness professionals. And basically it focuses on 4 pillars of mental well-being. The 4 main pillars, which we believe are very important: exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, and meditation, as well as social connection. And we invite you to explore more, but there are additional modules that focus on different things, such as redefining mental health. It is understanding the global effects of social, economic, and environmental factors on mental health, creating safe space, identifying biases, stigma, and discrimination that can affect other people, and plus many other marginalized identities that are affected by the way we communicate with people. Speaking of communication, basic coaching and communication skills is another module where we dive deeper into how to create that empathetic, present, attuned relationship with everyone that we come into contact with. And don't we all need to focus on a little bit more presence with everyone we meet? And additionally, ethics and collaboration, knowing when to stay in your lane and when to refer out. So there are all kinds of tools that are embedded into this certification, and we invite you to create your own toolkit based on this information that we provide through the certification. In addition to that, once you complete the certification, the learning doesn't stop. There's all kinds of research about other self-care approaches which are appropriate, such as aromatherapy, getting out in nature, and as I mentioned, Shinrin Yoku, the red flags for eating disorders, those types of that type of information, and then of course laughter yoga, which is also very important for everyone to understand and engage in. And it's, guess what? It's free. You just breathe the air. It's free.
Yeah, so
Next.
everybody who is a CanFit member, you're going to be hearing a lot more about this certification program, and you are more than welcome to go to the mentalwellbeingassociation.org or scan this QR code to learn more about the certification, to visit the Mental Wellbeing Association, and we really value our ability to share this with you, and you'll be hearing more in the future through CanFit as well.
Beautiful. So just some takeaways for informed fitness training. This is why we're here today. Number 1, create your own toolkit, as I previously mentioned, a mental well-being toolkit that is appropriate for each person who you are in contact with. And person A will be very different from person B, as we all know. So
Your
it's
toolkit can, and just to say, your toolkit can involve, you know, tracking their emotions in addition to their reps and their strength training. You can use that downloadable ecosystem of mental well-being worksheet they can work on. You can also have a list of local referrals to other self-care practices and therapists and things like that that you've talked to. So you might want to make sure that you have a folder in your office that just has those little mental well-being toolkits that you can use with your clients.
beautiful. Start slow and move from one-to-one to group setting. Next. Track emotions, as Cassie mentioned, in addition to reps and miles, and then the whole concept of gamification. Of course, tech can be a blessing or a curse. So, balancing when to engage with your clients, your members, through their smartphone or through other types of media is important. But yet, there needs to be time when you have a digital detox, right? But it can help encourage that social reinforcement or getting together, that social connection. And I think that's the number 1 reason why so many of our members are all coming back to our clubs now, because they were so lonely and needed to connect with the members that they used to take classes with and used to run on the treadmill with next to. Getting outdoors kills 2 birds with 1 stone and adds that additional mental health benefits. Did you know that when you are immersed into like the forest bathing, Shinrin Yoku, that the trees emit a phytoncides, which can help a tree that's diseased become more healthy. And if it can help trees that are diseased become more healthy, guess what? It can help every one of us lower our blood pressure. There's all kinds of research that's been done in Japan about this. Lower our blood pressure, change our mood, and help us to feel healthy on the inside and out.
All right, so I think we'll move into the Q&A now. And like we said at the beginning, please feel free to sign up to receive the slides and learn more about the JWB Foundation by scanning this QR code. And you can also just reach out to us at johnwbrick.foundation.org. And yeah, we'd like to open it up for questions and Q&A and comments. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Cassie and Lynn. Absolutely fantastic. I know you've been watching the chat, but there's been so many great comments about how practical and how generous you've shared in terms of resources and ways to engage with clients in our community and with our classes, and how to really embark on this mental health renaissance. There hasn't been any specific questions, but if you do have any, please drop them in the chat. Mary, our moderator, has also got a couple questions that have come up, generally speaking, from fitness professionals. So I'm going to ask one here. We have 3 minutes left today in this general session. How can fitness professionals recognize signs of mental distress in clients while maintaining professional boundaries?
Yeah, Lynn, do you want me to take the first crack at that?
Yes,
Yeah, I
you
think
can.
it's really helpful to listen to the language people are using. If you hear people using words of hopelessness, of meaninglessness, of self-criticism, I'm a bad person, I'm a terrible person, I don't think I'm ever going to get anywhere, those kind of generalized statements of that seem not to be super rational, that would be one to say, hey, I hear that you're using a lot of negative language, and sometimes that indicates symptoms of depression. The other thing you can do is self-disclose if you feel comfortable, so you can help normalize it for them and be like, I went through a pretty dark period a couple years ago, so I just wanted to say, I've got a list of people that you can talk to, and let's bring mental well-being more into our training together. So that's one way to do it, is to just really use that friendly tone of voice and not sort of a, oh my God, are you okay? But hey, you seem to be a little bit down. It seems like the language you're using is kind of negative, or you seem super worried about the future. Are you doing okay? Let's bring some more mental well-being into our training. And I've got a lot of tools that we can use to elevate that. I'm not a therapist. I can refer you to therapists, but would you like to bring more mental well-being into our training? Great, let's do it together. Like very,
Exactly.
very normal,
I was going to say, sometimes what they don't say is more important than what they do say. So actions speak louder than words at times, and really noticing behavior shift or change is really, really important. And that's one of the things we review in the coaching module. Really being in tune to really watching. And it could be even a group setting. Sometimes, your front row folks, now all of a sudden they're in the back row. Why? Just having those very important conversations, but based on behavior, is really important as well.
And that's a really good point. How you show up when you teach and train. It's not just delivering the class or the choreography or the training session and checking the boxes. Of course, getting through the program is important, but it's really being present so you can be really connected and therefore observant on how people are feeling, and just noticing, as you said, somebody moving from the front row to the back row. What is that really saying? And just checking in. And it's amazing how everyone's a little bit different in how they will respond, but they are all the same in how they appreciate the fact that you actually did connect with them. So a great point there. And
It's also
we
a
have
really good reason to have that toolkit handy, where if you have a 3-page handout that has the ecosystem, a list of references in your community, and say, hey, here's a few things I want you to think about and bring back later, it means that you don't have to open up a can of worms and spend 45 minutes or an hour with them, or be pulled into something you don't want to be pulled into. Just say, I want you to fill this out and bring it back next time, and we'll talk about it together.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is a wonderful piece of advice. And again, we're getting so many comments about how how amazing and informative the session's been. They've loved the laughter yoga. And I've done this laughter yoga with you many times. I find the more that I practice laughter, the more that I enjoy laughing for the sake of laughing. But I have to say, I've never laughed at my ceiling before, but it was so much fun that I actually started crying. I was laughing to the point I was crying. Anybody else? It's such a good emotional, it's been such a good emotional experience. So thank you for that. And I can hardly see because the thought of it is happy tears. We do have another question that came in through our team at canfitpro, because we're always looking for ways to really navigate where we take our education next. So you already said it, stay tuned. We have lots of exciting news coming through the efforts of what you've done with the mental well-being certification for fitness professionals. So those, some have commented in the chat box that taking a mental health first aid has been very useful, but knowledge is powerful. Lynne, my question to you, it was so pointed. You said about when you led into your yoga, your laughter yoga, you talked about when you see it, when you hear it, but when you do it. Can you repeat that? It was so
Oh, yeah, yes.
cool.
Oh, thank you. And I think Confucius might have said that.
Confucius.
So when you hear, you forget. When you see, you remember. But when you do, you know.
Oh, that sounds like a Confucius quote. But thank you, Lynne, for bringing it to us.
Oh, you're
All right.
welcome.
Well, as we close off the general session, we would like to say on behalf of everyone, thank you for being here. What we've learned today is just the beginning of our future together, and we will expect to see mental